Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of Reanimated. I'm H.A. Conrad, here as always with my intrepid co-host, Stuart Tiffin. Hello, Stuart.
Hello, HA. What's up?
Nothing much. Today we are talking about episode 3 of Fear the Walking Dead. But before we get to that, just want to throw a shout out to our sponsors, Squarespace. This episode, like all episodes of Reanimated, is brought to you by the great and wonderful Squarespace. This is the all-in-one platform. It makes it easy for you to create your own website. They have a lot of custom tools and different things to make it your own. Really easy to use. We use it for Reanimated, and it's fantastic. And because Squarespace is wonderful, they've given us an offer code for people who have not yet used Squarespace. So if you throw in the code ZOMBIE, which is not case sensitive, you'll get 10% off your first purchase. So thank you so much, Squarespace. So Stuart, we got some things to talk about before we go into the episode or into the review of Fear the Walking Dead. So what have we got on tap here?
Well, we got a couple of kind of scary news topics to plow through. And I'm going to speak real briefly. We just talked about it before the podcast started, but I'm going through a slightly scary apocalyptic scenario at the moment with a giant fire blazing away just about less than 20 miles away from my house. So I'm in California, as we have mentioned several times, and I happen to be north of San Francisco near the Valley Fire, which is burning up currently 61,000 acres in Lake, Napa, and a little bit of Sonoma County. So I have my bags are packed. They're by the door. We stayed up really late last night making sure that the winds weren't going to shift. And it's only 5% contained today. So this might be the last podcast.
I am sending good thoughts your way because I was watching this as well and really hoping that you weren't being affected by it. But the rate at which it spread was crazy. Yeah. I mean, it was suddenly just out of control. So
it totally blew up. It started on Saturday afternoon, and by Saturday evening, it was already 40,000 acres. And so it's gone up another 50% since then. Even with thousands of firemen. Luckily, or not luckily, unfortunately, somebody has died, but only one person so far that we know of.
So your bug out bag's ready then?
Yep. Ready to go.
Well, hopefully you will not have to use it. Terrifying. And is the air all crazy and stuff there too? Is it like you're smelling it in the air? I would imagine if it's that close.
It's a lot higher. Because of the way the wind is, and this is a good thing, it's not blowing the smoke to us. Good. Otherwise, it would be blowing the fire to us too. Right. But the sky is occluded, as it were, and there is a layer of ash on a lot of cars. But I'm not smelling smoke. No.
Good. Well, and on that note, let's go into the super upbeat news we've got going on today.
What can you do?
I know.
This first one reminds me of the plot of at least one X-Files episode.
Or several. I don't know. When I saw this and it sort of popped up around, and what we're talking about is this article about a 30,000-year-old giant virus, which they have discovered in the Arctic, in the ice of an old squirrel's nest. And so the reason why it's called a gigantic virus is because you can actually see it underneath, like visibly see it. It's much larger than a regular virus. And I am not taking a lot of solace in the fact that these scientists are making sure that this virus can't spread to humans before they go ahead and wake it up.
When you say you can see it, like with the naked eye?
Yeah, apparently you can. If you look really, really closely. It's
just like a nub?
Yeah, like it's and how they kind of test this out is like it's like 6 microns apart, and it also the other difference between this and modern day viruses is that it has it has a lot more genes within it. So just to give you an example, HIV has 9, and this virus has 500.
Holy smokes! It's like a sentient virus or something?
I don't know. And apparently this originated in old squirrel's nest, is from what they can tell. And I I have to say, I'm not so wild about this whole idea. I don't think that they should be waking this up. But maybe that's just me. There may be things that they can discover by studying this, but somehow after all the wonderful CDC debacles that have happened, I don't have a ton of faith in terms of the track record of waking up an ancient virus, and as you said, the plot of many, many different X-Files TV shows and movie plots too, it sounds like.
No
to me.
kidding. And I feel like this might even be straight out of The Last Ship, which
absolutely.
Its second season came to an end recently. Wow. Okay, so let's hope that this isn't the end of the world. As I say that with plumes of smoke on the horizon. Then we also have another terrifying nature story, which, as the answers start to come out about this, I'm even more confused and concerned. And I'm talking about this massive antelope die-off in Kazakhstan. It was now a couple of weeks ago, because we've had a couple of weeks hiatus since the last Fear the Walking Dead episode.
Right.
But something like 120,000 saiga antelope died within a week of each other, and separated by 300 miles or kilometers, I forget which they were using. Not close together.
Right.
Really scary.
And apparently these die-offs happen a lot more often than we usually hear about. This is just so massive that it's really, really strange that it happened. So what they think is that that basically bacteria that normally wouldn't have an issue, that the saiga would normally not have an issue with, have somehow woken up and just run rampant within the antelope.
Based on an environmental change.
Yeah, and they don't know what that change is precisely, but that's like their guess. But this is really insane. That said, the population is probably okay, but this is still a massive number to die off all at once.
They did say that of all the big herds to get hit by this, the one where it happened, I forget the name of it, it's like a double barrel, Betpak Dala, is apparently one of the biggest herds in the world left. Whereas some of the other ones are so small that they could have been completely completely knocked out. So luckily there's still enough of a population left to keep the species going, which is a horrifying thought. Watch out for those what are they called? Polymicrobial
things. Keep eating your yogurt, folks. Keep eating your yogurt. That's all I can say.
That's the key.
That's the key. But yeah, that terrified me, and the photographs are insane. Just the visual of seeing all of those. I mean, and imagine what, like, I'm not even sure what you do, because the cleanup, how do you even clean that up? Or do you? Because that is not going to be a fun area to be in for many, many reasons. Once they start sort of breaking down.
No, ma'am.
But we're ending the news sequence though here on a high note or a low note, depending on.
It's definitely straddling the line between.
It is straddling the line. I honestly cannot believe, but not surprised that this exists. This is something that CNET had up, and it is a cats versus zombies video. And it's everything that you could expect it to be. So we leave you with that. But on to what I am excited to chat with you about today. I was excited to talk about the other stuff too, but always looking forward to talking about Fear the Walking Dead. So
2 weeks was a long time to wait, wasn't it?
It was. But now we're on to episode 3, entitled The Dog.
And by the way, you obviously you called it completely accurately. Well played.
I did, but I didn't. I was hoping for more from the dog. But anyway.
Cameo, I guess.
Yeah. It is directed by Adam Davidson, written by Jack LaJudice. Is that how you say that?
Sure.
If it isn't, I'm sorry. But this is, the drama is unfolding here. We saw a few more zombies. We've got the two families separated, but there is a little bit of action.
There's a fair amount of background action, too.
Yeah.
Especially from the barbershop perspective and trying to get home, those guys see some crazy stuff on the way, and while they're there.
Now, an overall take on the episode, just to get your sort of immediate reaction. How are you feeling about this?
I guess, yeah. Not 100% on this one, and some of it's like a weird thing that I can't really put my finger on. But there's a few things that I definitely know what I wasn't feeling. But for the most part, it's kind of just a vibe that I wasn't 100%.
I have a lot of things that I was feeling that I can talk about.
Very well.
But I am feeling a lot like I felt when they were on Herschel's farm in The Walking Dead. I feel like there's sort of a lot of drawn out, weird, created drama and scenarios that don't make sense with what they're already learning. And I can chalk some of this up to the fact that they're still learning what's going on in this universe. It's still like this kind of... It's still that... Maybe that state of mind where you think that this too will pass, things will go back to normal, somebody's going to come in and help you.
Are you just totally sick of the argument, like, what if we just are nice to the zombies and they'll get better?
That's really bothering me a lot, especially when it's coming from the characters that have the most knowledge and know exactly what they're dealing with here. I might forgive it a little more of Ashley because she was kept in the dark.
Alicia.
But, the rest
Travis.
the rest of them have no excuse. And so there were some things bothering me there. There's also just some of the action scenes surrounding, them dealing with the neighbor zombies and them dealing with the riots in this that just don't strike me as being, they really don't strike me as being realistic at all.
The riot is my main gripe for this. Yeah. My main gripe that I can put a finger on anyway. And I guess, as you mentioned, the questioning of the morality of putting zombies down.
Right.
Where it seems like Kim Dickens is ready to become that survivor. Travis is like kind of holding her back. And then Ruben Blades is this wild card who I still don't really know what to do with.
No.
But yeah, the riot situation outside the barbershop is just like we see it's apparently the seeds of it, right? It's a police brutality. It's an unjustified police shooting in the eyes of the original demonstrators, and then it turns into one of these all-out anarchy riots that we've seen like around G20s and G8 meetings and shit like that. But what I don't get is like, is there just this population in downtown LA who's like on call for a riot? Like,
I don't know. I mean, I guess I could see that if people are already there and riled up, maybe that's happening, and then undercover of that, you've got the walkers coming in there, and it's very confusing. But I've got to believe that if you see people getting their throats ripped out by other people, I don't know that you're going to be focusing on rioting anymore.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what bothered me the most about that.
Like Travis and Chris run out of the barbershop. First thing they see is a guy getting his throat ripped out, but nobody else is paying any attention. That does seem far-fetched.
Right, and I think no matter what, you're going to pay attention to that kind of thing, because that's just such a shocking... And it's sort of the conversation that we had, about these initial victims getting bitten and not saying to somebody, hey, you know what? Something weird happened to me today. I got bitten. That's something that's just so out of the norm that I just feel like people wouldn't just ignore it, even if it was that scary. They're just going to, and maybe they're not going to know exactly what it is, but if people are acting that crazy and ripping throats out and being that, if you're seeing that kind of violence, I don't think that you're going to stick around. I think your instinct is going to be to get as far away from that. So I just don't really buy all of the riot thing. The other thing I don't buy is when they kind of run into the middle of nothing. Like they think all this stuff has been going on. They run out, they see the guy getting his throat ripped out, but nobody really bothers them. I don't know. It just felt really forced and stupid to me.
What would you have expected? Like that they would have been accosted by the rioters?
Not necessarily accosted, but if there, it sounded like there were so many people out there, and there really weren't. Though I guess they were sort of in a different part, like nearer to the truck. The other thing is that when they get into the truck, I just don't like if all that stuff is going on and people are actually freaking out and panicking. I don't think that they were going to get a clean getaway like that. That just all seemed super lame to me. That seemed much more, quite honestly, it seemed much more Z Nation than it did Fear the Walking Dead. But, so there was that stuff. And then on the other stuff that you were talking about in terms of the Madison scenes,
Yeah.
like that, her whole weird struggle, her interactions with Travis just felt very weird to me. They did not feel like it's almost like they keep proving the point over and over again, and I'm not quite sure why they're hitting this home. They
Well,
feel like
she's not telling him that she's already killed a guy. Like,
well, right.
Why hasn't she told him this yet?
Right. And then I also have the big bone to pick about the dog. You leave the dog in the house and leave him to be eaten? Like, come on. Dog could be your ally. Just leaving this weird dog with blood on it in your house?
The dog was just a big old alarm luring zombies to their house. Is really
I
all
know.
I mean, that's not like a helpful thing.
No. But anyway, like, so there's all these things, and I guess why I'm feeling like it's Herschel's farm. We hear a lot of conversations on both sides. Like, so you've got Maddie stuck at the house, Travis stuck at the barbershop for a lot of this episode. And on both sides, there are people saying, let's get on the road. Let's get out of here. Let's leave the other group. And I understand the lack of willingness to do that. But I feel especially with the stuff that Maddie has seen, it would make a lot more sense for her to be getting out of there and meeting Travis later than it would be for Travis to take off. I don't know.
She wasn't willing to leave him, and he wasn't willing to not go back to her. I feel like he's kind of the glue here, clearly, right?
Yeah.
For better or for worse. Another problem that I had, just quickly going back to the crowd, the riot scene, is that the rioters themselves, and I want to talk with you a little bit about what do you think the showrunners are trying to say about like this being the chaotic breaking down of society. It seems like these rioting kids, because they are mostly like kids, right? They're punks,
yep.
They're like the anarchist clique or whatever you want to call them, with the shaved things and the hoodies and the whatnot. They're mostly just kind of like acting as if they're at a mosh pit or a rock concert. Like when they're on the scaffolding, they're just kind of like hooping and hollering and jumping up and down. There's a lot of jumping up and down. Some people are throwing like Molotovs and bottles, but for the most part, I don't get the point of the rioters. Like, what are they accomplishing? What is their goal? And are we just supposed to believe that they are out there just enjoying chaos because that's what they're into? And again, then I wonder, who are these people?
Right.
And why are there so many of them? And how did they just kind of all appear down here on this evening when there's been so little media coverage that we've been privy to about what's going on?
Yeah, I don't know. And it's not, and this is the thing I have seen when I lived in Boston, after certain sporting events happen, things that you would think wouldn't happen because it's just like a ball game or like a baseball game or whatever. And there were crazy things that happened after that. Like a lot of younger people just kind of causing damage, turning over cars, setting cars on fire. And that's in Boston, where you don't have quite as much cover as you might in downtown LA. So that doesn't seem totally crazy to me, because I guess maybe if there is momentum, people would continue to do that. I guess I just don't.
Did we get a vibe? Did we get a feeling that there was momentum building?
Well, I think that's the problem, is that you don't feel that.
I mean, if we're supposed to think this is like a Rodney King video being aired, or like the Bulls winning their 6th championship, which
Well,
Chicago
that
saw its share of that stuff too. That has so much like massive scale publicity.
but it also has a lot of people. Like, I think you for something for an event like that to happen, I think you need you need people to feel like they're in a crowd and there's a lack of accountability.
Yeah.
And like they're not going to get caught. Like they're anonymous in that crowd. And I don't like, and I'm curious why the showrunners chose this, because it didn't feel like the crowd was that massive, or at least not what they were showing. And I feel like if they had done that a little bit more, maybe I would have believed it. But I agree with you. There was something off about the whole thing.
Like it was a production limitation, perhaps. That
Maybe.
like we were saying last time, there's only about 5 cops in riot gear that they ever have on
Right.
screen. And maybe that's just the downside of that. But I mean, you look back at the footage from London in what was it, 2012, 2011, when those riots were going on. There were riots all over London. I guess there are precedents for this. It's just it didn't. Yeah, I guess for whatever reason, it's not ringing right.
True. Yeah.
For us, but we can put that aside as like maybe just a production limitation and move on. But I guess it's just a matter of like why do you really buy that this is how it would break down?
No.
Because in part it's because they also want to persuade us that nobody will ever like talk about the problem that they're seeing in front of them, right? And that it's going to be just like this crazy explosion of anger based on a misunderstanding, essentially. Like the fact that people are being killed and they don't understand why, and so it's going to be a chaotic, angry explosion. And so the showrunners want it to be like a crazy night. And I don't know. Yeah, I'm still like, so from the perspective of, it doesn't really look or feel like a massive city imploding, and it also doesn't feel like it's one, I guess it's one possible way that it could go, but it's based off of this whole withholding of information thing that you and I have pointed out so far in the 3 episodes of this show that's been going on. So it's an ongoing issue, I guess, that we are having.
Yeah. The one thing that I did feel that was scary and I think pretty realistic is the hospital scene.
Oh, yeah, totally.
So that was a very good thing. So this is the thing. Just like a quick recap. We've got the 2 groups. One's at the house, one's at the barbershop. And when Travis's group escapes the riots and manages to get out there, what is the name of the mother? Sorry, I know it's Salazar. Griselda, that's right. Yeah. Griselda Salazar. Her foot has been injured and crushed, and so their thought, as your thought would be, is to get to an emergency room. And then it becomes very clear that the world is not the same, because they try, and it's just a madhouse. And really terrifying, in fact. And there's kind of like this, I kind of like the shock in the car with Travis and Griselda and everybody just kind of being like, I can't believe I just saw that happen. Yeah.
That's a great scene. And we get it from the perspective of driving past it. So it's fleeting and very powerful, I think.
Yeah. That as well as the lights all going off in LA as they're driving.
Yeah. I wonder how, I guess that was just CG, but it looked really cool. It looked very real.
Well, and then so that's the other thing. Like, I think part of what's like not sitting well with me is that, unfortunately, and this is during like Hurricane Katrina, and we've witnessed other things that have happened in urban areas, like when there's been an emergency, and humans do things even in, at least here in New York, they do things even like with a minor crisis, and they panic and they do crazy stuff. Like there were a lot of people trying to leave town for Hurricane Katrina, but there was an equal number that like bought out the grocery stores. Like, not complete pandemonium, but you would see like a lot of grocery stores out of stuff. And these are not that Katrina was mild, but New York at that point had never really been hit by a hurricane that that in that way before. So we had sort of a near miss with Irene. So people were kind of like, okay, I'll stock up and I'll be okay or whatever. But even with like little snowstorms and things like that, you see people just kind of going crazy and storing up, or leaving town. And so traffic is kind of crazy. Like there's no ability to even move anywhere because everything's just sort of shut down. So one of the things that happens, at least here, and LA doesn't even have real mass transit. I mean, they have buses, but they don't really have they have a very tiny subway line. But I feel like the ability to move around would be very limited.
It's a car centric. Yeah, everybody realizes this about LA.
So this is something that I'm not finding realistic. I think it would be almost impossible to get anywhere in a motor vehicle, even if you were using side streets. So that's one thing that's not sitting well with me here. And then the sort of the lack of information, and you're not seeing any other than, as you said, like the 5 riot police and stuff. You're not seeing anybody else really that's in any kind of a police force or the army or anything like that up until the end, of course.
Yeah, but we're on day 2.5 still. I mean, would you expect it to be that quick?
Well, I mean, when things happen and there's a state of emergency, yeah, I mean, people get brought in pretty quickly. And they definitely did.
The National Guard is actually here in my county, so yeah, I guess I could say that
right.
Does happen.
Oh, sorry, I was saying not Hurricane Katrina. It was Superstorm Sandy, I guess. Sorry.
I was wondering how you got to Louisiana from.
Yeah. This is me jumping back in time. No. But Louisiana, New Orleans is another example of that. I mean, if you watched how everything broke down there, like crazy.
Yeah, it's just I feel like it's apples and oranges to compare this insidious and yet it should be very much in the open zombie thing to a massive event like an NBA championship or
I know
or a hurricane. I don't know.
Well,
I just feel like it's not quite the same thing.
It's not quite the same thing, but even if you don't know exactly what's going on and they're responding to the riots or whatever it is, I just feel like there's going to be a little bit more of a response in an area like LA. And especially because of the Rodney King riots and things like that, I just feel like people are a little bit more sensitive about those kind of things and concerned about keeping the peace. So, I don't know. So there's that stuff going on.
There is that stuff going on. What do you think about the Monopoly game?
I also found that to be very strange.
I thought it was nice. I felt like the 3 of them as actors have good chemistry. They felt like a family. They
do, and you know, I get that weird stuff is going on outside and they're trying to distract themselves. And so that to me, but that was part of the whole, hey, we may ride this out and just distract ourselves and eventually we'll be normal again kind of moment. So there was a little bit
real to me though. Like I stayed at home during a hurricane once, which was really dumb in Florida, and I just watched The Daily Show until the power went out, and then I got in my bathtub with an axe and a 6-pack of beer.
Nice.
That's just what you do, or maybe not. Really, you should just evacuate. So to me, it was like kind of like that watching The Daily Show when you know all shit's about to break loose. And they were all managing to pretend everything was cool until they hear that gunshot, and they're all like quiet. I thought that was like a pretty affecting moment for the show.
No, I thought that was good, and that's sort of one of those, you know, similar to the happy shopping scene in 28 Days Later and things like that. There's like a moment of normalcy, and sometimes a little bit of levity, but then it's quickly gone.
But you need that for these kinds, right? We've talked about this before, but it brings you up just so that you got to have I don't know what the part before the drop is called in dubstep, but it has to be there in order for you to enjoy the drop.
No, that's true. The other piece that I was having a lot of trouble with was Maddie and the kids going to explore the other house.
Explore? Do you feel like that's the right word?
Well, they're looking for a weapon.
Yeah.
But that whole thing felt very strange to me.
it felt like a set because they had a weird labyrinth in the backyard to get
with
through.
chimes, and I'm just sort of like, and then they see Travis coming in, and they don't just yell out the window, which I guess they're scared of other people out. I don't
It
know.
took me a minute to. I don't
I
even know
couldn't.
if I have the right answer, but I guess they're not neighbors. It was like a backyard neighbor, not like on the street. Otherwise, they could have just run out the front door, right?
That's what I was trying to figure out, and it was just so strange. And then Alicia running back. You forgot the shells? What?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. The whole thing felt very, very
That part
contrived,
did feel contrived. You're right, and
stupid.
yeah, kind of dumb.
Because you know what? Maybe she would have forgotten the shells because she doesn't fully get what's going on, but Nick wouldn't have. And that's like the part that I'm just like, this is just annoying. And this is a lot of what I'm talking about. The Herschel's farm feels like they just keep running around and around in circles and rehashing the same ground. And I just want them to move on with it. And then there's like, and the decision to stay and wait it out. Travis to me feels like the member of the group who's going to get everybody killed at this point. I kind of thought he was on board with stuff, but he keeps saying, "Oh, everybody's sick." You know what I mean? Like
That's
he's
dumb.
and it seems crazy to me because he's seen more of this than anybody else has.
I don't disagree with staying there overnight because going out into the dark.
No, I agree with you, but I also understand the urgency to get out of town while you still can.
When Kim Dickens makes that, well, Maddie, sorry, she makes that point. She's like, "Look, it's getting worse." She's got making a really good point. Like, we should get out of here while we still can. And it turns out maybe she was right.
Right, and then Ruben Blades is just kind of like, "Yeah, we're gonna stay here. It's too late already." And
His character is kind of annoying because he's being a know-it-all, but he doesn't seem that capable so far.
right, he doesn't, and I don't know. And then he like calls Travis weak, which in that moment Travis was weak, in sort of keeping the zombified Susan around. Like, come on, the woman's like trying to get through the thing to kill you. You're gonna leave that just kind of running around back there? I don't think so. And I definitely don't buy that Maddie would do that.
Hit her with a hammer?
No, I don't buy that she'd just walk away, especially after her whole big speech to what's her face.
It's early days.
I don't know. I think that they need to stop with all this BS and cut to the chase.
The hand wringing.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's the problem with this. Well, it's not a problem. It's a challenge that this show has. Is that they're not. I assume they're not attracting a new audience. This is an established audience. We know the rules, so pretending like we don't, or expecting us to be patient while everybody else gets caught up, is maybe not a good call.
Yeah. So I just hope that they will move it along in the next episode.
Yeah, well, so let's talk about the way this episode ended. It was, and one of these, I wasn't that psyched that they killed Susan before she managed to kill her husband.
Yeah.
Well,
and it also didn't that also feel like it was like the longest hug in the world.
Yeah.
Like so Susan's husband comes home from his trip and he thinks she's sick because he doesn't have all this back information. And Maddie very slowly runs up and is like, "Don't touch her." And then he's like, "Wait, what?" And then slowly goes to embrace her. It just felt like he was going to get taken out, and he just didn't. And then very, very weird scene where like the cavalry come in, as Travis says, and takes her out. But I guess this is what again doesn't sit right with me. Everything feels a little bit off. Why would they be in that neighborhood of all neighborhoods? There's
in such numbers, yeah. There's like crazy number.
In such numbers around this one little area, because I think most likely they would probably be downtown, which is probably where the most of this issue is. And I just don't feel like they would have made it out to the, like, I don't want to call it the burbs, but...
Oh, they're on a cul-de-sac, aren't they?
They are, but it's just, the whole thing feels a little strange to me. Like, how would they even know this was going on? And then, I mean, they are doing stuff like where you would in a crisis, marking the houses, talking about like how like they know that there's an infection and all that kind of stuff. And so I guess that stuff's okay. And then, of course, the other thing that Travis does say, oh, the cavalry's here, and oh, we're saved, and so they're going to stay put now, or at least that's what you get. And I'm like, oh, great, we're never getting off of Herschel's farm again. So
Yeah. It did feel like when they were driving the 2-car convoy away and the Salazars were still in their house, I was like, oh, I wonder how they're going to meet up again. That doesn't seem very likely.
Right.
But then, within seconds, they're all back in the same house again. So I'm happy to see the cavalry arrive because it's going to be a new dynamic, and it will definitely send the show in a new direction.
Yep.
So.
And I also think there was a couple of good lines. I did like Ruben Blade's line that good people are the first people to die, or something to that effect.
Very good line, yeah.
So that was kind of good, and he's definitely talking about Travis, and there's a couple of good ones. But yeah, the tension between Travis and Daniel, they just kind of seem like they're fighting for no reason. And I don't fully believe that, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's like a continuation of Daniel being in a pissed off mood when Travis talked his way into the barbershop. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, they're going to need to develop, or let that character develop, because right now Daniel doesn't really have much of a multifaceted thing.
Yeah, I want to see. I mean, and he and his wife keep implying that they've been through worse, so I'm sure some of that background's going to come up at some point. But yeah. So anyway, I did not enjoy this as much as the last 2 episodes, but again, we're just getting started here. But
and we're halfway through.
I know,
Time.
but we're halfway through, so I'd like to see more. And then I thought it was really the whole sort of feeling like the cavalry's there and everything's okay, and then Nick seeing that airplane kind of wobbling and never seeing it actually crash, but it looks like it's about to.
Yeah, that was weird.
That was kind of strange.
I don't know if we were just supposed to take away a sense of unsettling from that. Oh, is it crashing? We don't know. Is everything fine again? Maybe. I guess that's kind of where we are. It's like, oh, well, the military's here. They're taking care of business. Travis, when he's like, okay, everything's going to be fine now, he doesn't even sound convinced, and maybe that's the tip of the cap to the audience. Like, yeah, everything is still fucked up.
Right.
So don't worry about it, guys.
Yeah. So anyway.
And now there'll be plenty more shell casings on the ground after the next wave of things going downhill. What is the next episode called? Not Fade Away. And it's a new director. So far, they've all been directed by Adam Davidson. So
maybe we'll see a different...
Exactly. We'll have to see if this changes up.
All right. Well, I'm still looking forward to it. I still like talking about it with you.
Of course. I don't see that day
ever stopping.
When it's not going to be the case.
No. I would just like to see it move along, and it's weird because it's sort of like I feel like these are people that understand the genre and should know better about certain things, and I'm not quite sure what they're waiting for, but let's give them a chance, I suppose. So until next time.
I guess so. Join us again next time, Reanimated fans, when HA and Stuart get together and discuss the 4th episode of Fear the Walking Dead, as well as, the roundup of zombie news, as we do.
Yeah, and let us know what you thought of episode 3 of Fear the Walking Dead. I would love to hear what some of our listeners thought. Reanimated PCast on Twitter.
Yep.
On Twitter.
And reanimatedpodcast@gmail.com. And reanimatedpodcast.com.
Yeah.
On the internets.
So drop us a line. Let us know what you think. Give us your thoughts. And until next time, ciao.
Goodbye.